Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danilda Martinez, and I am an editor, producer, and I also moonlight as the program and outreach director at GALSNGEAR. I am so excited to welcome you to our Tequity Hub today, and especially for the conversation that we're on. We are about to jump onto a quest. What storage solution will work for you today, tomorrow, and always? And these are our wonderful panelists, Jeff, Stephanie, and Gergana. I'm going to go ahead and get into introducing them properly because I love to go off script, and once in a while I'll get myself back on it. So truly welcome and thank you guys for being here. And we're going to have a wonderful conversation. So let me start with Gergana. She's the director of growth and marketing at LucidLink. She's passionate about making life easier for creative teams with a background in post-production and a deep understanding of media workflows. She spent her career helping creatives work smarter and not harder. Welcome, Gergana.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. Thank you. Next, we have Jeff Greenberg. He's a post-production consultant and master instructor and trainer with over 25 years in film and video post-production experience. He specializes in AI, workflows, color grading, and he advises clients like HBO, Disney, and the U.S. military. So do not mess with Jeff. Just get to know him and have him on your team. Welcome, Jeff, and thank you for being
here. You're sweet and kind as always, Danilda. It's a joy to come and show up. I'm just a huge fan for years of GALSNGEAR, and this is one of the rare times I've been asked to come speak, and how could I ever say no?
Thank you so much. We absolutely love having you too, and you're a wonderful ally, so thank you. And finally, we have Stephanie de Guzman. She is from Sweet Studios, and she is a enterprise account executive. Stephanie directed global business development efforts at Pitch Black, an award-winning house of visual effects. She started her career as a 3D artist and eventually made her way to the business end of post-production. And she has always aligned closely with technologies that empower creative storytelling. So thank you. And I'm going to stop butchering your introduction. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I promise I'm not AI. I am human, hence the mistakes. Experience that so many of us are so familiar with, which is, what are we going to do with storage? And I'll just tell you a quick story before we get started, and then we'll jump into actual questions and discussion. We are constantly seeing our communities discuss things like, oh, where do you keep your files? How do you transfer, especially how do you transfer files from clients? I think Facebook or WhatsApp groups that I'm a part of, there was a conversation about, some throughout the typical question. I have a client, they've got X amount of gigabytes or terabytes of video that they want to work on, and they're on a bunch of different platforms. Any suggestions how I can get the footage over to us quickly so we can get started? And then the conversation went on. People were saying, oh, ship hard drives. No, I can't do that. That's too expensive. It takes forever. Well, how about, have you tried Google Cloud? Have you tried Dropbox? Obviously, LucidLink and Suite came up, and all these other cloud solutions. But at the end of the day, the conversation ended up with, well, let's just have them ship the hard drives anyway. And that's the type of thing that we see regularly, that we see happening all over the place, where it's the illusion of ease and efficiency, but in reality, we're still not there. And so that is really what I wanted to start with, is asking Gergana and Stephanie, how does your product kind of stand apart when people are considering cloud-based solutions? Where do you begin?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, first of all, especially considering the landscape of production and post-production in the last couple of years, crews have shown that they are agile, they are resourceful, and I think it's a beautiful thing. We're seeing crews kind of assembled using talent from all over the country, all over the world. And while that opens up the process to diversified perspective, it also introduces challenges. And I think especially for crew who have been in the game, we tend to resort to our, antiquated ways because it's what's familiar. And so I think for that reason, Suite specifically really focuses on giving editors and artists the ability to work according to the workflows they are familiar with. It's about making cloud storage solutions feel, look, and perform like the solutions they already know. So Suite specifically looks and feels like a mounted drive that's on your local system. It's basically an extension of a server style workflow. And essentially it's built with intention to be that simple. You know, it provides access on your local drive to both you or to you and the rest of your collaborators. And that's the idea, to allow for collaboration to feel, you know, seamless, and to also have the confidence that everyone's looking at the files in the same way, that they're versioning correctly, that they're updated. So I think it is a matter of kind of lowering that barrier to entry, lowering the intimidation about, you know, kind of migrating to a new system by making it look and feel like a system you already know. And I think that that opens us up to, you know, quelling those fears of like, if I hire this specialist in, you know, in the UK, will it slow down our process? And the whole idea is to remove all of those slowdowns and those disruptions.
I love that. And at the end of the day, that's what we're after, right? An efficient workflow, seamless transitioning from one team member to the other, especially during this era of distributed work, post-production teams. Gergana, I'd love for you to share.
Thank you. Yeah, with all the solutions that you mentioned, shipping drives, we joke at LucidLink that our main competitor is FedEx. So, you know, the solutions that, you know, that are provided in the world, both, you know, different storage, also cloud or on-prem, they work for certain things. They're, you know, good solutions. What they don't make available for their users, which LucidLink does, is that real-time collaboration that we focus on. Yes, it is storage, but what is important for us as creators is to be able to work on something immediately. As soon as it is uploaded in the cloud, we can open it, we can start editing, we can save it, and then somebody else on the other end of the world can pick it up and continue. So we allow for this around the clock collaboration, no matter where you are. It's very natural feeling of we are working together, even though we might be all around the world. So something that feels like it's local, like it's with you, no matter where you go, no matter what device you're working. We recently actually launched apps for mobile devices, so you can even access the files and review while you're on the go. So this real-time collaboration is something that we've felt like it's really important, and other solutions don't necessarily deliver when you're talking about traditional cloud storage or Dropbox. Yes, you can see the files, but in order for you to start working with them, you know, I imagine a lot of us have used Dropbox. If I were to upload something, then Jeff needed to use it. He has to wait for the entire thing to download before he can import to Premiere. What is that doing? Also filling up space on his computer. He might not have 2 terabytes of a hard drive on his computer to edit his movie or, you know, the project that we're working on. So now he has to get a drive plugged into his computer to save everything, or a RAID or a server. So the more we're working, the data gets bigger. Now we are in this mess of copying files in multiple locations instead of having a single source of truth in the cloud.
I love the things that you guys are mentioning, because at the end of the day, one of the things that that the industry leaders like yourselves are focusing on, it sounds like, is just creating a democratized version of moving data that's, you know, high bitrate data that's huge, and that a lot of the smaller shops might not be able to kind of play in. And so, Jeff, I'm coming to you next with a question related to this. So kind of let me set the stage real quick. as you guys share about this, I think about scalability and the idea that, you know, some of this sounds wonderful, but I know that we have our solopreneurs and, like I said, small shops. We have smaller teams and larger enterprises and organizations or public entities that may not have the budget. So I'm going to come back to you, Stephanie and Gergana, but first let me ask you, Jeff, when you're advising a client, how do you start to evaluate their storage solutions for your projects or their projects? You know, what criteria do you think is most important in your view from that of being a consultant and a trainer in the field? You're gonna have to unmute yourself, my friend.
I'm muted. I'm
There you
muted.
go.
I thought I hit the button. What? I don't know how computers work. The biggest struggle with nearly every single client that walks in the door is always going to come down to the same question. What are they budgeting? And the disconnect is often between what they think the budget should be and what their actual needs are. And this ends up coming into like 2 or 3 different scales. And the first is, you know, physical hardware that's got to live. It's got to live somewhere because they need somewhere a copy needs to exist. And then it
it's not all
becomes,
cloud, Jeff?
I love the
I
cloud.
can't just snap my finger and throw everything up on the cloud.
I love cloud-based infrastructures. I love all of these things, but it gets real expensive real fast. And where it gets very painful is that idea of, oh my God, I'm spending this much money a month. Now I have to be honest. I love that conversation because I know they can afford Jeff Greenberg. That's totally cool. But we talk about some very aggressive models, whether it's local storage and what kind of NAS setup do they want? Do they want something that's more white glove, or do they want something where they're going to build it themselves? Generally in the white glove category, because I don't want people to go, oh, John's not here or Sally's not here, the server's down and nobody can work.
Right.
And then
That's like a
beyond that,
recipe for
we've got to
disaster.
have that backup somewhere. It's got to be automated with as least human pain points as possible. And one of the beautiful things that's happened in the last, I'll say 5 to 6 years, is this distributed workflow due to here, this is just for the geek moment, right? Because this is Tech Tuesday, right? For fuse mounted, Tiger Tech based original block based file transfers, which is what both Suite and LucidLink do, and they do it brilliantly. But that idea that they're going to put some of their media somewhere so editors in remote locations can immediately get to work. And the question becomes, is it going to be the full res? It's going to be the proxy. Everything has a cost of time and space. And it's just that discussion. And what we tend to do is we tend to go shoot high, shoot super low. Let's see what's in between and what makes the most sense to save time. At the end of the day, if I can make a group 5% more efficient in a given year, it's 2 weeks of time I just gave back to every employee. And that's a lot of money.
Awesome. I'm wondering, based off of what you're talking about with distributed workflows and just our, you know, we are kind of the industry that evolved with and before and right as the pandemic, you know, took hold. What are we seeing now? Are we seeing a preference? And this is for everyone, so chime in as you'd like. Do you see a preference between cloud-based hybrid or on-prem solutions among editors and post houses and or your clients in general?
I'll start because I'm sure both the ladies are going to sit back and have way better explanations than I do. But I'm going to tell you that I end up seeing some resistance to cloud based on connectivity issues and some confidence in something that's physically visible. That doesn't mean cloud isn't part of the strategy. It just means cloud is taken advantage of. And for example, I know a couple groups that do nothing cloud-based. I know a couple groups that use as little cloud as possible and use tools like Parsec or Jump Desktop and remote in because they have the equipment, they've got the systems, people aren't in the office. You know, it becomes a much cheaper price point. And so for each of them, it's just evaluating where they live.
Okay. But it sounds to me like you're saying that you're seeing there's confidence in on-prem, but there's a desire to move to cloud, so that hybrid is the sweet spot. Is that what you guys are seeing too, Stephanie and Gergana?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that obviously it depends on what the mission is. It depends on the natural structure and the dynamics of the team. But I do think that people have recognized the opportunities, that remote work and that cloud-based workflows do provide, flexibility to hire, the ability to work from anywhere, wider access to talent. And so naturally, once you kind of get introduced to those opportunities and you incorporate them with success, that kind of propagates and you continue to want to continue those workflows. But I do think that, to Jeff's point, the idea is always going to be, can we pull off what we need to well, have it perform well, despite whatever connectivity, challenges we may face. And is it going to save us time? That is really, those are the questions that whatever solution you choose based on your dynamic, those are the questions you need to answer, right? And I think with cloud-based workflows, what it does provide is the ability to tap in from anywhere, and there are ways that suite, kind of alleviates or addresses the fears around connectivity, including, the ability to have, caching and the ability to upload, maybe you upload while you're on-prem, and then that provides access to all of your collaborators, and wherever they are, they have the ability to kind of access that media more dynamically. But I think the idea is, sometimes it's necessitated to go to multiple solutions because your workflow just looks differently. You have, editors, or you have people out in the field because they have to be, and they have to be able to dial in at a moment's notice. And so I think hybrid is certainly a trend that we're seeing more of. And all of those use cases are so unique.
Okay, that's good. What about you on your end, Gergana?
Yeah, there's definitely hesitation, as Jeff mentioned, in some workflows to move to the cloud completely, which is natural. Of course, people are used to having everything in a tangible place. Now, when it comes to cost, though, what we need to discuss, and it can be misleading to look at the hard cost of something and be like, oh, yeah, this solution is more expensive. Now, we've done our research, and what we hear from customers is saving, 4 times on cost, or having 4 times ROI or more when they're using LucidLink. The reason for that is the time savings that they have. When you're saving hours per week for each of your artists, it's just, you're going to save a lot of money. And for the editors, that is even more savings on time that they can use to create more. And if you are a freelancer, or if you're a small creator, you become more competitive in the marketplace. So we have to look at those costs. Now, with LucidLink, you can use a little bit, you can use a lot. It's a solution that scales with you. It used to be viewed as this enterprise solution that only the big studios are using, only the big shows are made with, and only they can afford. Now, we worked really hard in the past couple of years to make sure that, first of all, the ease of use is there for anybody to be able to get going. In 5 minutes, you can create your LucidLink workspace, and you can start with as little as $7 a month to use this solution. So that's
a very affordable entry point.
It's a Starbucks coffee, right? So you can start there. We're not going to push you to use or put all of your storage into LucidLink. We know that for some budgets and for some workflows, that will not be effective. As Jeff and Stephanie mentioned, hybrid is still on the table. You still have to have backup. You still have to have archive. We'd be very happy if you put everything in LucidLink, but you don't have to.
Well, I'm going to take questions from the audience here and there, so you guys are welcome to drop them into the comment section. But that's actually one of the questions that Rich posted in the comment. He said, we have all heard of the 3-2-1 rule for your media. What are your answers to those numbers, right? What do you think about that
Well,
in terms of backup?
this is not a matter of personal opinion. This is the law.
Right.
You
I think
absolutely have to have your backup. You absolutely have to have multiple locations. You
yeah.
absolutely have to have your archive. Where LucidLink really shines is that real-time collaboration for your active projects. We are working towards solutions for archive and for infrequently accessed data where the cost matches the use. But really, it is really important for everyone to understand that because the cloud, we know that is very reliable. It has in every data center you have multiple copies of data. So your data is very safe in the cloud. However,
I think that's
on backup, right?
Yeah, using the word safe. And I know that a lot of some clients that we work with, they have, laws governing their data. They're not the ones that we show off on YouTube that are shiny, banner clients, but they're consistent. It's a huge part of the industry, things that are under NDA or, especially if you work with, dare I say it, government contractors or agencies. How do we help editors understand questions to ask around that type of information, contractual agreements on data? When you come to a client and you're maybe pitching, a quote or a project, and they're like, yeah, well, how do you handle my data with Lucid or with Suite Studios and Jeff with any agnostic solution? What's a good way for an editor to solve that problem and ease either their manager, their supervisor, their director, or their client's needs when it comes to data management, privacy, and then the question following that is, hey, last year we worked with you, we solved the problem of data, you did a great job, we want to work with you again. All of those, however many terabytes and gigabytes of data that we stored in the cloud, can you retrieve it now? I see those two very hand in hand, and I would love to know, how do you approach this type of a situation?
Well, in terms of security, I can quickly cover how we think about security. This is, and it will continue being a hot topic. It only, the requirements will get harder and harder to meet. So LucidLink is a solution that has what we call, and this is a technical jargon, but I'll explain what this means.
Go ahead, geek out.
I know,
this
right?
Is the crowd.
Well, IT technical, right? Not editor. We are a zero knowledge service. What this means is that any bit of data that you put into LucidLink cannot be viewed by LucidLink ourselves or the cloud storage provider that your actual data lives in. So even if the government asks LucidLink to recover data that you store in LucidLink, we absolutely possibly could not do that even if we wanted to, because of the way the data is encrypted and stored. This is a very unique value proposition for us. There is no other solution on the market that achieves true zero knowledge service security, especially at the level of the individual user or the small team. So this is something that companies try to accomplish, but there is usually like a small hole in the actual zero knowledge service. So yes, government, the military, anyone can be absolutely safe in using LucidLink.
Cool. Jeff, Stephanie, you guys want to chime in on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, I would just add that all of the security and compliance regulations, as Gergana mentioned, they will continue to evolve, and it is absolutely necessary that all of us that participate in this space continue to stay, up to date on all of that. It's the only way forward. And coming from the visual effects space, I saw firsthand very often how specific and how diligent production companies, can be about making sure that their data is secure and that they are protected from leaks. And so, yeah, it's absolutely a top priority for, I think, all of us in this space.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jeff?
The biggest piece of that puzzle is that's one of those opening parts of that conversation. And the groups that I run into that have the greatest sensitivity are invariably government, they're medical, or they're a group that requires a level of air gapping. I'm working with a group right now where their actual systems are all virtualized. And they had to send me a laptop, their own controlled laptop, so I could touch their systems.
Yeah.
And this isn't super secure. This isn't even a government. This is just a network. And it's just, look, God bless those IT people. The struggle becomes, it causes certain things to get crossed off in the ability of sensitivity and exposure.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we still come back to concepts like LTOs, linear tape options that are local, that are done and take time. We
Yeah.
still end up talking about, okay, what are we doing for really long-term backup? Is it going to be a set of drives that live somewhere, which is
And
sort
that's
of that
absolutely-
intro space?
Yeah.
Are we going to use some place that's got cold storage where, yeah, we can put it up there and it's another bill we're going to have to pay, and to draw it out, we'll probably never draw it out. But if we draw it out, it's going to give us a pain point. How do we negotiate between service A and service B? Because I don't want to download everything to upload it somewhere else. And
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, this is kind of where I was heading with that question. You said long-term storage, and there's the need for that immediate secure access to their data for making sure that a client's data is secure, and leading with that for these types of workflows. But then there's the back end of that workflow, the exit, if you will, going back to archival footage. And so I think as we kind of discuss solutions for storage, the planning and the understanding what you can offer as a post house, as a post professional, as an editor, wherever your group lies. Often we think of workflow and we're just thinking about, coming in at the gate, what do I need for this project? But when we're solving for long-term solutions, be it archival or returning and repeat clients, how do we organize ourselves up front so that we're successful and so that we budget properly as well? Can you guys share a little bit about that? So
I went
short-term,
last
medium-term,
time.
long-term storage. Is that where you were going?
Yeah, it's got to be the first conversation. Is we're no longer at the point where you're talking longer terms with clients. We're no longer solopreneurs. We may tomorrow bring in 3 specialists in 3D. I'm dying to find out what 3D Stephanie did. I'm going to guess maybe Maya. I'm going to see part of maybe some Houdini in there.
Max,
Right.
the fun stuff.
But I'm going to bring in a specialist who, even if I'm a solo, I don't have that skill set, despite sounding like I might. And then just as equally, I need to be able to get back to that information 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So we begin to also discuss things like asset management. We discuss things like, okay, we have 0 budget. I'm a nonprofit. I'm doing what Rich is doing, where, everything's strapped. What are my lower cost options, and how do I migrate to something longer term? These are all the pain points that we deal with in post. So the big answer here is, you don't plan for today, you plan for tomorrow. You deal with what you have today, you adapt. But if you're not shooting 6 months or a year ahead of where you're intended to hold your media, when that client comes back with a little bit of money, but still a nice piece of change, being able to quickly adapt and service that client keeps you in business.
Yeah. So planning for the long haul with your solutions. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, I would agree. I think future proofing is absolutely key. I mean, as Jeff said, there are a number of questions to kind of ask to help you get to that, unicorn solution. I mean, is the data such that you're kind of only break in case of emergency accessing it, or is it, data you expect to tap in with some cadence? And then on top of that, scalability, you know, over time, do you expect to kind of expand your data requirements and your needs over time? And at what rate, you know? So it's all of those things on top of budget, of course, that need to be considered, you know, when evaluating your total solution.
I think it's so important to let clients or directors and heads of departments understand that, because you are kind of at the helm of starting those conversations when you're sitting down as an editor, you're not just the creative person. So I have a question in the chat. What is the recommendation for asset management if you have files that would need to be stored for 5 to 10 years and then suddenly revisited again? And I think if I might guess about this question, it's tied to how do I maintain that as a budget item over time? If I'm only going to access it once or twice, do I offload that to a certain client? Do I look for a combination of solutions and services and vendors? What's kind of the norm that you're seeing, let's say, for like independent agencies versus enterprise?
Ladies, you want me to take a shot at that first, or do you want to go?
I thought Gergana was going to jump in.
I was just
Go,
going to
go.
mention that most of the asset management solutions on the market, they would work with any storage solution that is provided to them. So it really is a matter of choice and probably a matter of budget. I see Rich was mentioning LTO, and some people love it, some people hate it. It's dividing the world. Everybody's talking about LTO, but yeah, based on the storage that you have to make sure that of course the asset solution that you're choosing will read it and categorize everything in it, so you can easily pull. Now you also have to think through when you do need the footage, how long are you willing to wait for this footage to be restored? Because LTO will take some time. Deep archive in the cloud will take some time, a day, two. How long is your client willing to wait if you're working with a client? If you need it to be instantly restored so you can work on it, you will have to use storage that is, even if it's archive, it will need to be instant retrieval archive solution. That can be something like AWS. They have those tiers. It's still archive. It's a Glacier, but it is instant recovery. No, instant. What was the word that I used? Retrieval. Or you can use, depends on how much footage you have. It might be in your budget to have everything in in an instant collaboration space like LucidLink, where just everything is there. You go back, you pull what you need, you work on it, you save it, and you forget about it. But again, you have to think about when the time comes to retrieve it, how long will you have?
I want to pivot on this question, unless Stephanie, you were about to jump in with something.
No, I was just going to say, I think it goes back to the North Star of, reducing the number of steps, reducing the amount of time. I do agree it's a matter of preference, but you want to make sure that all your solutions work well together. We've seen, the interaction of Suite with preferred asset management, like, Frame. We've even seen really unique implementations with flow productions tracking or shotgun, shot grid. So yeah, I think it is just a question of what works well for the organization that you have and how can you reduce the number of redundant steps.
Okay. And speaking on redundant steps, when we are collaborating, I think this is a question that scales even to the enterprise level. Remote teams, multiple editors, VFX artists, sound post folks, we're all collaborating. And we might even still have some crews still on site sending stuff through the cloud from their cameras just natively. Talk to us about what that landscape looks like as far as managing versions and information in real-time collaboration, and how storage solutions can play into making those more efficient, as opposed to, just figuring it out as we go. Like how can we How
Yeah.
can we
The
move past that?
age-old versioning a mess that I'm sure
Yeah.
we've all dealt
Final
with.
2,
Yes.
final 3.
Yes, I
every
think
final.
yeah, I think that's what's I think that's a huge advantage of, the suite system looking and feeling like a local drive on
Mhm.
your system, because it allows everyone to be looking at the file organization, the file management is controlled, and it can kind of follow whatever protocols your team has for maintaining the organization of that versioning, and you can be confident that everyone's versioning with the right files, right?
Mhm.
And also it removes the redundancy. So because you don't have to download the file locally, rename it to another version, upload it, and then hope and wish that there isn't an upload by another editor that's happening
At the same time with a
by
different
the
name.
same name. It completely removes that headache. And it just, it's really seamless. I mean, it feels like everyone is looking at the same thing, and you can be sure that you don't have two people kind of editing your file and changing it up and messing up your entire org for the whole team.
That's the dream.
This is, the benefit of not having multiple copies of everything.
Yes.
When I say multiple copies is not, I don't talk about backup. I'm talking about your working files. If Stephanie
Right.
and I are working on a project, for her to have the media and the project in one place, and for me to have them stored somewhere, and then when we're working together, well, which one is the correct one, right? We've all run into this. So yeah, having everything in a single source of truth, very important. So we all know that we're working on the latest version. With LucidLink, very interesting feature that we offer is also called snapshots, which provides you the ability to restore a previous version of your entire LucidLink file space without it taking up a whole ton of data. So it's not going to be a copy of all of your files. It's just going to, it's kind of like Time Machine on Mac, if you think about it. You can go back, check a previous version. If somebody also deleted something, folder, oh, this is the version I actually needed, drag it back into your current active file space and continue working on it. Somebody accidentally deleted a project file or something like that, happened by accident. But just having the versions, always working on the latest version of everything, and then also being able to restore a previous version of your files.
And in terms of scalability, is this available at the entry point? And obviously enterprise, and white label kind of things are.
Yes, it is.
Done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Indeed.
Yeah, confident artists, I think, are the most productive, right? Artists and editors want to be sure that their work is safe and will be saved. And Suite has the same thing. We have Time Machine that essentially allows you to go back to a version of the drive down to the minute. So even if it's within minutes, that we're unsure about whether we have the right version, we can always use that Time Machine feature to go back to the drive and recover what we need to. So it's that confidence, the ability to kind of work in your flow state without worrying about anything being lost.
Oh, that flow state, not interrupted by any bandwidth issues. We'll talk about bandwidth another time. Jeff,
the one thing I'll
anything?
just throw in about versioning and the like. Yeah, we have a set of rules that we try to behave with.
Yes.
And I hate to use the word, they tend to fall closer to guidelines. I have tried to encourage people to keep records of how they break the rules while working on a project, because they're going to break the rules to make delivery. Nobody cares if you broke the rules. If you deliver.
Are you saying that we start a project and then people don't stick to the plan?
That has never happened in my career.
Is that
first time I hear about this?
my general, one of the wildest things that I've been encouraging for more than a decade, really 20 some years, is have somebody in post in those production meetings, because it's stunning how just going, hey, wait, we're going to shoot some green screen. Why don't we do a camera test or 3 before we do it? No matter how great our people are, just little small things. It's the line I use, Danilda, when I talk about these sort of solutions, about
Mhm.
general workflow at any level, remote or otherwise. It's $1 in pre-production saves 100 or more in post. I know
Oh,
we're
that's
going to
so
break the
true.
rules. I know we're going to break the rules.
I break
It's
the
just,
Yeah.
rules
how do we
even if
break
I
them?
create it.
Right. Oh my God, the worst offender is always myself. I'm in the middle of a project and I go to resurrect a project. I'm like, what a-hole was the guy who worked on? Oh, it's me. Yeah, it's always me in that regard.
Oh my God,
So,
you guys.
so the kind of the thing here is that as much as we want to have some sense of Bible, some sense of agreement. This is how we're going to handle versioning. This is how we're going to handle these pieces, from
Mhm.
naming sequences as they go out, to how we handle projects, to who shepherds pieces when they're finished.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest problems about growing up and going from small to larger is we're used to doing it all ourselves. And being able to like say to somebody, no, Danilda, you've got archiving taken care of? Great. I'm walking over to the next gig. Let me know if you have questions.
I think
Because a week
actually
from now, I won't know.
that issue exists in larger enterprises as well, because it's not just the one person, but in larger teams and organizations, it's silos. You know, the conversation just transfers to a bigger kind of field. And so what you're describing, I think, it's just part of what we do,
It's
is making sure that there is that connecting piece, be it the piece that connects, you know, the editor to the cloud, or the hard drive or the server, but then among the folks that are actually working on it, who is doing that
I'm working with
communication.
one client who's got different divisions, and it's stunning to see how much they're reinventing the wheel. And it's
Mhm.
painful to watch. I mean, I'm fine with
Oh,
it. I'm just trying to get them to all have a collective bring together.
Hey, maybe they
okay.
reinvented though. What if they come up with a solution that's better than anything we've ever seen?
Well,
There's definitely a
it's the
generalized,
holy
Gergana.
grail.
I mean, I'm sure all of us have encountered this. There's a generalized, hey, we haven't solved this. We haven't seen this ourselves. We're going to come up with our solution, and often
Mhm.
reinventing the wheel. I worked with one group that just avoided proxies for everything that they could do. And then they agreed, okay, we've got 100 cameras on the shoot. Maybe we should start using proxies.
That might be a good idea at that
This is
point.
this is the value that consultants like Jeff, and you know, we know consultants exist in every area, but it's good to
Yeah,
know that in post-production and storage management, consultants exist so they can help us shortcut to the
absolutely.
solution, because not because it's, you know, impossible to figure out on our own, but we all have a daily job that we're trying to do, and you know, having someone to help us with that infrastructural stuff is just going to make it a lot easier for the team, who can spend their time to do what they are supposed to do.
So we're thank you, Gergana. We're coming up on the 45-minute mark of our chat, and I want to kind of pivot again and briefly wrap up, but also open up the floor to our audience. So, because one of the things that we actually love about our Tequity Hub and our space here is that it's a very interactive space. So I do want to leave time for our audience to kind of meet up with you guys and for you guys to chat. But what I've heard so far in the conversation, and I do have one last question, so I don't want to monopolize, but so far we've talked about entry points, storage solutions, long-term and short-term. We've talked about organizing and how to approach projects, whether you're a solopreneur, small agency, or large enterprise. And what I'm hearing is planning is important. As obvious as that is, it's important to plan with longevity in mind. And that doesn't just, that means everything from naming conventions to budget to space needs and retrieval needs. As well as your team, who on the team is actually going to be managing, you know, things on the outside, right? On the back end of closing a project and then delivering, and then where those files end up. That's something that I think you touched on, Jeff. Sweet Studios and LucidLink have been so generous to give us your time, Stephanie and Gergana. Thank you so much. And Jeff, your time is valuable as well, as is everyone else here. So I'm going to end with one question that may open up a whole new thing, but we might have to discuss that later. So we'll call it the speed round. And it's this: what innovations like AI-driven features are we seeing in the future of the cloud space, or of storage? I mean, and And the second part of that question is, should we be looking towards solutions not just for storage when it comes to cloud services and media transfer, but also collaborative editing on the cloud? So AI, what future things are coming our way, and what about cloud editing? Go. Think about it. Boop, 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 boop.
I talk about this stuff at NAB, Danilda, for like the last 3-4 years. I have pat answers for all these pieces. And I apologize
That's
for
why
it
you're here,
because
Jeff.
I'll tell you
It's no
that I've
coincidence.
seen a number of editorial true, we're going to build a fresh editor in the cloud that transfers to Premiere or Avid or Final Cut. And they all end up with the same sticking point, which is they do great for common formats. But as soon as we get into raw formats, it gets painful because you got to get it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's item one. And
so that's
they
just
all have
added
to build
time
their
to the
own
workflow
proxies.
that you wouldn't have locally, is what you're saying.
There's no way to make the work better without adding time to the workflow. You want color? Yep. It's going to take more time. Better sound?
Okay.
But that's the cloud editorial space. And where it gets exciting is in that AI piece, because suddenly large language models analyzing speech, vision models analyzing media may be able to help assist, whether it's to sync or just slates. Could you imagine a world where the slate gets automatically labeled the shot? Because we're here, we just haven't seen anybody other than the one group who I think is really being a visionary is a group called Strata, and they're just hooking into everybody. They're willing to hook into any cloud-based infrastructure and say, we'll start doing the analysis because it's asset management in the cloud or out of the cloud that's going to be that future piece. And AI is going to get us there. It may not be perfect. And that's sort of the pain point about AI is when it fails, it's spectacular.
I would say, I would argue that cloud-based editorial is definitely much more of a reality than fears might, contradict. I think that there are absolutely configurations and some solutions that include things like pre-caching or caching some of, some of those larger chugging files. But the true gift of, cloud-based workflows is that you still have that single source of truth. So even if you are taking advantage of caching and kind of leveraging your cache to kind of provide a smoother workflow with larger raw files, as Jeff mentioned, the cloud still gives you that consistency. It still gives you, file streaming gives you confidence that you have everyone's tapping in and updating that media in real time. In terms of, AI tools, I think it's always going to come down to anything that can save on time, the innovations that can save on tagging, save on categorization, that sort of thing. I think we're still in the adoption phase. I think people are still figuring out, how to truly leverage that based on, file naming conventions and tagging that has existed, for prior to these innovations. And that buy-in is
that trust, right?
Yeah, it's the natural barrier for any new technology. But it's a step-by-step process as we build confidence in those new tools by implementing them in actual applications daily. Same with with cloud-based editing. I think widespread adoption is the next step.
Awesome.
I would, there's one more use case, I think, very important for AI in storage management, outside of, tagging and data asset management. That is deduplication. I think something that
that's beautiful.
Just, a file can be named in 100 different ways and be still the same file, and we can have multiple copies of it. If AI can, just see the files and analyze and see where there are matches and flag this for us, thank you. And please do that, AI, for us.
God, I want that. God, I want that, Gergana.
As somebody for that.
As somebody who's, I know you've got a long history as being around workflow. The biggest struggles I see is when it's the same content in different formats, whether it's been transcoded to ProRes or a proxy,
Mhm.
and suddenly which one is the source of truth? Is it the oldest file date? And that's scary as heck to me, that the idea that,
man.
and I'm a crazy early AI adopter to the point where
Mhm.
my family's just like, shut up about AI. Legit though, like I'm worried about it having access to file systems and having it remove stuff without a safety pass. And I may not know 3 months or
Awesome.
6 months that it did something wrong.
Oh
So
my God.
I'm a little bit
Yeah.
conservative when it comes to deduplication.
Oh,
Pardon, for somebody who's
no,
very
no. Oh,
progressive.
I'm not saying it should do it for us automatically, but it can at least flag where there is where it thinks there would be. I think it would still fall on the human being to decide. But oh, I had a thought.
Must have
And
been a
I
good
lost
one.
it maybe. Yeah, I was just going to agree with both of you on cloud editing. And here's the deal here. There are multiple levels of what we can think of cloud editing. One, or cloud editing workflow. One is my data is in the cloud, my footage is in the cloud, and I'm still using my local machine, which is what, you know, LucidLink, Sweet Studio provide. You know, I am using the cloud just as storage. Now, the next level is I'm using compute in the cloud. So I have a more powerful computer somewhere in the cloud, and I'm, you know, accessing it from my less powerful
Yeah,
computer.
virtual machine.
This is a reality, as Stephanie was saying. There are obviously some workflows that this doesn't work for, but for a lot of workflows, you know, it's an option. That can also work in combination with having my storage in the cloud. So you know, this is a complete cloud workflow with minimal, you know, local usage. And then there is my editing software itself is cloud-based, which is, you know, where I think things are headed. So
And mobile as well.
instead of having to install my software on my machine, the software just exists in the cloud. And this is, you know, where the big tech companies are headed into. And we will see the need for us to have more storage in the cloud that is directly communicating with these cloud-based editing platforms directly. We're not there yet, though. This is
No.
a few years from now,
Yeah.
at least a few years from now, because it comes down to performance.
And there is a level of efficiency that will inevitably become native to working in the cloud, completely. But agreed, I don't think we're there yet, and we may or may not get there within our career trajectory, but hopefully we will, so that we can leverage AI. I want to thank everyone for coming. I just want to shout out our sponsors and thank them. That's AJA, Signiant, and Black Magic. And thank you to everyone who gave your time today, your knowledge, to our panelists. It's wonderful having you here.